Today, we're counting down 15 forgotten British dinners no one makes anymore. From soups that once filled grand railway hotels to hearty pies born of wartime resourcefulness, these recipes reveal how changing tastes, regulations, and shifting traditions erased entire meals from the nation's tables. Our list spans vanished offal favourites, regional classics, festival feasts, and dishes shaped by everything from religious custom to economic upheaval. Some were household staples, others luxury centerpieces or survival solutions in tough times. Which dinner became a national joke, and which faded quietly with the rise of convenience foods? Let's find out, starting with a soup that was once the reliable starter for dining rooms across Victorian Britain. Number 1. Brown Windsor soup once reigned as the unshakable starter of Victorian and Edwardian hotel dining. Thick, glossy, and unmistakably brown, this beef-based broth was a fixture on railway and grand hotel menus from London to Glasgow. Archival menus from the London and North Western and Great Western Railways list Brown Windsor alongside cold beef and boiled mutton, offering travellers a sense of comfort and British respectability. By the 1950s, hotel correspondence reveals a shift. New managers and chefs, eager to modernise, swept away the old soup in favour of French onion or consommé. By the late 1960s, Brown Windsor soup had become a national punchline, mocked for its stodgy reputation in newspapers and cookbooks. Today, it's remembered less for flavour than for the way it symbolised institutional British cooking, ubiquitous, reliable, and ultimately left behind as tastes changed and hotel kitchens embraced the promise of continental flair. In second place, mock turtle soup brought a touch of theatrical luxury to Victorian hotel dining rooms. Born from necessity in the early 1800s, this elaborate dish used a calf's head, tongue, and other offal to mimic the prized green turtle soup favoured by the elite. The result was a rich, gelatinous broth, flavoured with wine, herbs, and sometimes even a hard-boiled egg, masquerading as turtle flesh. Mock turtle soup became a fixture at public banquets and railway hotel luncheons, its presence signalling both economy and grandeur. Archival menus from the Great Western and Midland hotels list it alongside more expensive fare, offering diners a taste of opulence without the cost. Yet the dish's complexity and reliance on offal would prove its undoing. As post-war hospitality modernized in the 1950s, new managers swept away these labor-intensive recipes, and the stigma around offal grew. By the mid-1950s, mock turtle soup had vanished from British hotel menus, leaving only echoes in song, story, and the occasional vintage cookbook. Third on our list, jugged hare stands as a symbol of rural British cooking before the supermarket era. Estate kitchens and country pubs once relied on this method. Wild hare, marinated overnight in red wine and herbs, then slow-cooked in a ceramic jug set inside a simmering water bath. The technique preserved the hare's rich flavour and made tough game meat tender, a practice detailed in 19th century estate ledgers and game dealer directories. Jugged hare was a fixture on autumn menus from Yorkshire to Devon, with game dealers supplying both grand homes and local markets well into the 1970s. But as urbanisation spread and hunting rights tightened, hares vanished from butcher counters, and the dish faded from everyday life. Today, jugged hare is a rare curiosity, sometimes revived for food history events, but seldom found outside a handful of country pubs. Its legacy a reminder of a time when game to table was simply the rural norm. Number 4. Faggots once anchored. Thursday nights in the Black Country, where butcher shops prepared trays of these offal meatballs for the end-of-week rush. Made from minced pork liver, heart and lung, bound with breadcrumbs, onions, and herbs, faggots were as much a product of industrial supply chains as family kitchens. Butcher ledger books from Dudley and Wolverhampton show a regular Thursday spike in sales, payday for local mill and foundry workers, when affordable protein mattered most. Oral histories at the Black Country Living Museum recall the ritual. Butchers shaping faggots by hand, steaming them in enamel trays, and serving them with thick gravy and peas. As the region's heavy industry declined in the 1970s and supermarkets replaced small abattoirs, the infrastructure that kept faggots on dinner tables began to unravel. Today, mass-produced versions linger in supermarket freezers, but the original survives mainly in family butchers' recipes, preserved as a badge of regional pride and working-class ingenuity. Number 5. Tripe and onions once defined the northern high street, with more than 200 specialist tripe shops operating in Manchester alone during the mid-20th century. For generations, bowls of pale, simmered beef stomach served with onions and white sauce were a thrifty staple, especially in cities where abattoirs and local dressers supplied a steady stream of offal. The dish's distinctive aroma, equal parts nostalgia and challenge, lingers in the memories of older Mancunians, who recall queuing at tiled counters for a portion after work. Everything changed in 1954, when new food hygiene regulations targeted local dressing and bleaching, making it nearly impossible for small shops to continue. Tripe's fall was swift and decisive. By 1996, Leeds saw its last tripe dresser close, marking the end of a tradition that once fed thousands. The disappearance of tripe and onions wasn't just about changing tastes, it was the direct result of regulation rewriting what could appear on dinner tables, leaving a once ubiquitous meal to fade quietly into history. Number 6. Rabbit pie was once a lifeline for rural families and city dwellers alike, especially during the lean years of World War II. With meat tightly rationed, children recorded in mass observation diaries would set snares at the edge of fields, bringing home rabbits to stretch the week's protein. These pies made use of every scrap, rabbit meat layered with root vegetables, sealed beneath a flaky crust. It was a dinner born of necessity and resourcefulness, a way to turn wild game into something both filling and familiar. Wartime austerity gave rabbit pie its heyday, but the story changed quickly after peace returned. As prosperity grew in the 1950s and 60s, and stricter game laws limited snaring, demand for wild rabbit dwindled. By the time supermarkets filled their shelves with beef and chicken, rabbit pie had faded to a memory, its resilience outpaced by a new era of abundance and regulation. Number 7. Rissoles were once a fixture of British school dinners and post-war home kitchens. Born out of the need to stretch every scrap during rationing, these humble patties combined minced leftover meat, mashed potato, and breadcrumbs, then were fried or baked until crisp. School catering records from the 1950s through the 1970s list rissoles as a regular feature, prized for their ability to turn yesterday's roast into a filling meal for hundreds of children. Wartime cookbooks promoted rissoles as a practical solution for households facing tight meat allowances, and oral histories recall the familiar scent wafting from school canteens and family tables. But as ready meals and processed foods swept through British supermarkets in the 1970s, the ritual of reusing leftovers faded. New nutritional standards in school catering and the rise of convenience food meant rissoles quietly disappeared, leaving behind only memories of thrift, ingenuity, and the taste of a different era of British institutional dining. 8th place. Cow heel stew once filled northern kitchens with the scent of slow-cooked, gelatin-rich broth. Made from the feet of cattle, this dish was prized by working-class families for its ability to turn a cheap, overlooked cut into a nourishing meal. Lancashire market stalls displayed cow's feet alongside tripe and other offal, offering an affordable source of protein and minerals. The long simmering process transformed tough connective tissue into a silky, hearty stew, a texture that divided opinion even then. In post-war decades, cow heel stew remained a staple for those seeking maximum nutrition from minimal expense, but its fate was sealed as offal fell out of favor after the 1970s. Generational tastes shifted, younger diners recoiled at the wobble and richness, and the closure of local abattoirs made the key ingredient nearly impossible to find. Today, cow heel stew survives mostly in memory, its legacy tied to the resilience and thrift of northern households, now replaced by simpler, more familiar fare. Number 9. Oatmeal herring once brought the taste of the Scottish coast to dinner tables each spring. Whole herrings, caught in the inshore fisheries, were rolled in seasoned oatmeal and fried until the skin crackled and the oats turned golden. For families in fishing towns, the arrival of fresh herring signaled both the end of winter and the start of a short, abundant season. In the 1950s, Scottish Sea Fisheries reports tracked a steep drop in local herring landings as overfishing and competition from larger trawlers battered the small boat fleets. At the same time, the frozen food revolution swept into British kitchens. Birdseye's campaign for fish fingers and pre-cut fillets promised convenience and modernity, leaving whole herring and the ritual of preparing them with oatmeal to fade from everyday life. As the fishmongers closed and freezers filled, oatmeal herring quietly vanished, a casualty of both ecological change and the march of convenience. Number 10. Butter pie once anchored. Friday dinners across Lancashire, its simple filling of potato and onion wrapped in a golden, buttery crust. For generations, Catholic mill workers queued at local bakeries each Friday, honouring the church's rule against meat with a pie that was both humble and sustaining. Known locally as Friday pie or Catholic pie, it became a weekly ritual, its presence recorded in bakery ledgers and remembered in oral histories from Preston to Wigan. Everything changed in 1966, when Vatican II relaxed the requirement for Friday abstinence. Almost overnight, the sense of obligation faded, and so did the lines at bakery counters. Butter pie lingered as a comfort food, but its role as a marker of religious identity slipped quietly into history. Today, the dish survives as a nod to tradition, a reminder of how faith once shaped not just what was eaten, but when and why. Number 11. Peas pudding once stood at the heart of Tyneside's industrial diet. Made by boiling yellow split peas until soft, then mashing them into a thick, savoury paste, this dish offered a cheap and filling source of protein for mining families. Mid-20th century surveys show that nearly 60% of Tyneside households served peas pudding regularly, pairing it with boiled meats or sausages to stretch modest pay packets. Oral histories from miners recall how a pot of peas pudding simmered on the range, ready to fill lunch tins or bulk out a supper after long shifts underground. For generations, it was more than a side. It was a symbol of thrift and community, sustaining workers through the hardest times. As industrial jobs faded and tastes shifted, peas pudding slipped from daily tables, surviving mostly at fairs or in nostalgic pubs. Today, it remains a regional marker, a taste of Tyneside's resilience, remembered by those who still seek out its simple comfort. Number 12. Blind scouse once filled Liverpool kitchens with the aroma of simmering potatoes, onions and carrots, minus the meat. In times when money was tight, families stretched what little they had, and this meatless stew became not just a meal, but a point of civic pride. The dish is so closely tied to Liverpool that locals came to be known as scousers, a nickname born from their daily dinner pots. Oral histories recall blind scouse as a fixture on school canteen menus and in working-class homes, especially through the 1920s and 30s when jobs were scarce and meat was a luxury. As prosperity grew after the war and wages rose, meatier versions of scouse took over, and the original blind scouse faded from regular tables. Today, it's rarely served outside the occasional heritage event, but its legacy lives on in the city's identity, a reminder of how resilience and resourcefulness shaped both the dinner table and the people who gathered around it. Number 13. Stargazy pie turns the Cornish fishing village of Mousehole into a stage for living folklore every December. With pilchards baked whole, their heads and sometimes tails poking through the golden pastry, this pie isn't just food, it's a symbol. The story goes that during a fierce winter storm, when hunger threatened the village, a fisherman named Tom Borcock braved the waves to bring home a catch big enough to save his neighbours. The earliest written version of the legend appears in the 1920s, but the festival it inspired, Tom Borcock's Eve, has become a fixture, drawing crowds to watch the dramatic pie emerge from the oven, fish heads gazing skyward. Unlike most on this list, Stargazy pie survives as a ritual, not a routine meal. Labour-intensive and unapologetically fishy, it's rarely seen outside the festival. Its continued existence owed more to story and spectacle than to everyday appetite. Number 14. Kedgeree once brought the flavours of the British Empire to the breakfast tables of Victorian Britain. Adapted from Indian kitchery by colonial officers and their households, it combined smoked fish, usually haddock, with rice, hard-boiled eggs, and fresh herbs. In the late 19th century, household manuals and Anglo-Indian cookbooks described kedgeree as an essential part of a proper English breakfast, often served alongside devilled kidneys and grilled meats. Hotel breakfast menus from the era placed kedgeree near the top of the bill, signalling both status and cosmopolitan taste. But as formal breakfast service faded and British mornings grew more hurried, kedgeree lost its place on the family table. The rise of toast and tea, and later the full English fry-up, pushed this cross-cultural dish to the sidelines. Today, kedgeree survives as a brunch curiosity or a nod to colonial nostalgia, its story a reminder of how empire and everyday life once mingled over the breakfast sideboard. And finally, in 15th place, steak and oyster pie closes the list with a lesson in shifting luxury. In Victorian Britain, oysters were so abundant and cheap that they were considered the protein of the poor, a natural partner for beef in hearty pies served from London chop houses to railway hotel buffets. Pie cookbooks from the 1860s routinely list preserved oysters alongside shin of beef, suet, and onions, with the expectation that nearly any butcher or baker could supply both. The combination delivered a rich, savoury filling, the brininess of oyster deepening the flavour of slow-cooked steak. But as the 19th century drew to a close, oyster beds around Britain suffered from overfishing and pollution. Prices soared, and what had once been a working-class staple quietly transformed into a rarefied delicacy. By the 1920s, steak and oyster pie had all but vanished from everyday menus, surviving only in the occasional demonstration by food historians or as a curiosity in cookery books. Its disappearance marks the end of an era when ingredient cost, not just taste, shaped the British dinner table. A reminder that what counts as luxury can change, sometimes almost overnight. Across all 15 entries, the journey through forgotten British dinners reveals a tapestry woven from regional identity, economic change, and social transformation. From the once ubiquitous brown Windsor soup, now a symbol of vanished hotel fare, to the dramatic finale of steak and oyster pie, where oysters shifted from everyday protein to luxury, the ranking uncovers how tastes, regulations, and ingredient costs shaped what ended up on British tables. Offal-based dishes like faggots and tripe, once staples, disappeared as hygiene laws and changing preferences took hold. Wartime austerity meals such as rabbit pie and rissoles highlight how necessity drove creativity, while regional specialties like butter pie and blind scouse faded with shifting religious and economic realities. The most surprising trend is how many of these dinners vanished not from lack of flavour, but from shifts in supply chains, prosperity, and social habits. This list shows that British food history is defined not just by what survives, but by what we leave behind. Forgotten dinners tell a story of adaptation, resilience, and the ever-changing palate of a nation.